All right, awesome. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Valerie. I see
Good.
Rosie on your screen. It threw me off there a little bit.
Yeah. So, it's Monday after Super Bowl. I hope everybody's team won because, of course, I'm from Missouri. I'm a Show Me State girl. I was rooting for the Chiefs,
Same
and it
here.
was a nail biter to the end, wasn't it?
Gosh, yeah. I was wondering what happened to the Chiefs. It's like the whole first half they were being shut down for the most part.
Yeah, 49ers definitely dominated. I think most of the game. So, but anyway, we got John Gibson with us today. We're just talking about our weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. We were doing chores inside and outside, and one really exciting thing about the weekend is we started a new cohort 17, I think it was, or I think it is. And it's pretty exciting. This cohort is virtual. Um, and we have cohort members not only from the entire state of Florida or throughout Florida, but a few that reside outside of Florida. So it's pretty exciting to be able to share Action Zone and what we do with people who live outside of Florida.
Yeah, I have to say I preferred the in-person one that I went to,
Mhm.
cohort 15. But for those that are out of state, that's awesome that you guys are doing that for them. So maybe at some point you guys could do a hybrid, where you got both. I've been in meetings where you can do that type of thing, and it works. It's not as dynamic when somebody's not there, but if you have people there and making
Mhm.
sure somebody's taking care of those folks that are remote or through Zoom, then you can make it work. So
Yeah, so we tried that a couple of times coming out of 2020. So we have experience, but it's anyway, I agree with you. The in-person one, it's just being in the environment, the energy from entrepreneurs,
mhm.
their excitement not only for their own business, but for yours as well.
Yeah,
Um,
not to mention the break times in between times where you're
mhm.
talking to these folks. And I met with several of the people in my cohort, and that was one of the most valuable aspects of the business, or that not the business, but the business networking. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, it certainly is. And funny you say that, but in saying that, when we do virtual and everybody goes on breaks, they turn their screen off and they're in their homes usually and they're all, grabbing a bite to eat or doing some chore that they can do in 5 or 10 minutes. So that part of the in-person experience is lost. But
mhm.
um, we have 19 people in the online cohort, so it's pretty large. Um, so we have, as you can tell, an Action Zone alumni, John Gibson, Navy veteran. John, tell our viewers a little bit about you and in your current business.
Yeah, I am retired Navy, mostly in San Diego, a couple years in Japan, and a year and a half in Virginia, which is where I met my wife of 32 years. um, or almost 32 years. It'll be 32 years this year. But yeah, just right. I started while I was still on active duty in San Diego, and about 2 years before I retired. So I knew it was going to work. I didn't hit the ground running. I was already sprinting. And because I mean, I retired in '97. That's the days of Windows 95 plug and pray, if you remember those days. Um,
Uh,
moved to Florida about 19 months ago and absolutely love it here. Moved the business here as well. I still have clients in California. We are a full service IT department. We provide a strong foundation on cybersecurity and everything that technology related that a business would need, including things like we have the top Konica Minolta dealership as a partner, so we get the absolute best deals on things like copiers as well and service. So when you partner with us, you're getting a full IT department with great connections, and we provide 24/7 support. We have a support desk, network operations center. I outsource the security operations center because that is a very specialized piece, and I want to make sure we have very talented and qualified individuals doing that security operations center piece. So that's a little tiny bit about Just Right.
oh, so I was gonna say, did you say the name of your company?
I did just right.
Uh,
Your
Just right.
IT department.
Just right.
What else you do, people?
And I've met John's lovely wife. She's amazing and very supportive. So a big shout out to her because being an entrepreneur, while it may not be a family business, it's definitely a family affair.
Mm.
Family affair, and that's why we encourage spouses to participate along with their veteran to through the Action Zone program, so they can kind of get an idea of, what the family is about ready to embark in, and vice versa. We have military spouses that are going through the program, and we encourage their their veteran to sit alongside with them. So, just like I said, they know what they're getting ready to embark in as a family. So, um, a lot of our listeners, followers of Action Zone, obviously, are small business owners. Um, can you give them some advice or talk to especially the home-based businesses because a lot of newly launched companies, they were working out of their home office. What can they do to protect themselves from any kind of cyber attack that's not overwhelming on the startup budget?
Right. Well, one of the advantages of working inside an office, I'll approach it from that angle first, is the hardware security that you get from being behind a really strong firewall. So that's an advantage of working in the office. And typically there's policies in place from the business itself that provides additional layers of security that you don't necessarily have when you're working from home. And that was definitely apparent as, through COVID, because there were a lot of people that shifted working from the office at home. So the number of attacks increased because of those expected vulnerabilities, and the number of successful attacks went way up. So there are things you can do though. And if you do not have antivirus, I would say you definitely have to have antivirus, and you can't go don't go for the free versions of anything because you're not going to get the same level of protection that you could with a full-on version uh, of a program. Sophos, for instance, I would say is a great choice for somebody that's working from home. That's not what we provide. We provide a what would be considered a enterprise level product, and that's what my security operations center helps to manage and maintain for us. And they're the eyes on 24/7, eyes on anytime something suspicious um, is there. They're taking a look at it, and they'll even put it in what we call a sandbox environment, see what this malicious software might try to do. So, got to have it. We call it advanced endpoint protection, not just antivirus, because antivirus relies on getting updates. And this is one of these things where I fundamentally disagree with the antivirus types of software programs out there.
Glad you're
80,
talking about this because you mentioned this at the FAVOB event, and that was one of the things I wanted to touch on because people don't think about this.
yeah,
So, yeah.
88% of the antivirus programs out there, you have to let malicious software onto your computer or into your environment before it'll do anything with it. Fundamentally, I think that's just wrong. The
Mhm.
security software we use will prevent it getting in, and it's not, it's the only software package combined with a SOC. You have to have that SOC piece because otherwise you're not getting the full protection. 99 and 100% effective against zero-day threats. A zero-day threat is something that's not been widely documented yet. There's no known vulnerabilities in software, things like that. It's just been discovered probably by a hacker that's trying to exploit it. And the platform we use is the only one that scored that high, 99.8% and 100% effective against stopping it. Most of the other ones, again, you have to let them into your environment. And if there's no definition update to protect you against it yet, you're you're infected. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think is super important, you can't, it's hard to have at home a business grade firewall. Firewalls are essential for protection as well. So there's a new product out there called Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE for short. SASE gives you a firewall capability without having to have that expensive, like there's some really big brands out there. Palo Alto is the number one brand, and you're talking expensive, and the yearly subscriptions to keep that going. But that's what big enterprise is going to use. And there's other ones out there. Sophos again has a great solution for small businesses. That's it's not terribly expensive and it's definitely worth it. But if you can't do any of that, and what we put into place was what we call SASE or the Secure Access Service Edge, which provides a firewall capability and creates an encrypted connection from the user's computer to a server at the home office, and it's encrypted, so it's secure. It's kind of like a VPN, but it's a lot faster and it's more secure than a VPN. So
Hmm.
that's two things.
So SASE, SACE.
SASE, Secure Access
Oh,
Service Edge.
oh, S. Okay, and then the other one you said SOFO,
Sophos
SOFO.
is a brand of a firewall. That's two. I have another one that I like to use that's not terribly expensive called Calyptix. This is something you typically get through a IT partner. You can't get a lot of these things. You can't go to the store and buy this stuff. You can get Sophos antivirus, but it's the consumer version. It's not the business grade version. The business grade version of anything is going to be better. And if you're doing a business, I think you should step up your security to a business grade solution. Otherwise, you're leaving yourself vulnerable. And with all of the things that are happening now, President Biden in 2021, I think it was around April, he signed a executive order to basically toughen cybersecurity in the United States, meaning the federal government was going to become more and more involved with enforcing cybersecurity types of protections in places of business. And in other words, putting the responsibility on the business owners. And one such measure is something called, it's by the FTC, Federal Trade Commission. Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act was passed around 2003, 2004 timeframe, and it was brought to both houses in 1999. So it's been around a very long time, and a lot of people know about it. It just was never enforced. So there's a safeguards rule that's part of that GLBA or Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act that gives teeth to the federal government to make sure that cybersecurity protections are in place. Now, in 1999 or 2003, 2004, compared to today, the cybersecurity threat level is dramatically different, and it's completely, you could say that it had a much needed upgrade path needed to just make it relevant, and they did that. So June of last year, 2023, they put it into law, kind of like the way HIPAA was brought into place. And there's financial institutions that you wouldn't typically think of as a financial institution, like a home appraiser or a mortgage company. That one kind of makes sense. CPA firms that do taxes or your accounting, courier services. That one was a little bit interesting, but then again, they courier documents back and forth between escrow companies and stuff like that. You would think escrow companies would be named in there because they're the ones that are kind of putting together, and that's been one of the weak spots, especially with title theft. Everybody's probably heard of title theft by
Yeah, right.
now. And there's other businesses that are part of this, like a car dealership that does a lease for a car. They're also under this FTC safeguards rule. So these rules have nine very stringent requirements that typically a business can't do on its own. So you need to have an expert for that type of thing, or designate, you have to designate in writing who each of these people are going to be doing these specific roles to provide these nine areas of protection. So that's another area that's kind of a change that needs to be addressed by small businesses right now too. If you're in property management, even that's another one that you have to look at. And they just lowered the number right at the end of October. I think it was October 27th of last year, that it used to be 5,000 or more end users in your database in any of those businesses. They lowered it to 500 on October 27th of last year. So
So
now,
oh, I forgot to change my name. I'm still Rosie Lee. Um,
what I was telling you at the
uh,
beginning, I was like, what is that?
yeah, no matter how I sign into Zoom, even if somebody else sends me a Zoom link, it always defaults to our nonprofit, which is under Rosie's name, nonprofit Zoom.
But we see
So,
your name on the background, so that's good.
yeah. Um, so all of the rules and regulations that you just mentioned are not only for enterprise, but also for small
Oh, these
business
are,
owners,
yeah. If
home-based
you have
businesses.
500 customers, end users in your
Mhm.
database, this is past, present, uh, customers or clients. And if you
Mm.
have a database of 500 or more, then you fall under these FTC, Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act safeguards rule, that
Does this apply
um,
to sole proprietors as well, or you know?
anybody that has 500 more names in their
Okay,
database.
okay.
Yeah, that
Hmm.
that does something that they consider to be a financial institution. Now, that financial institution designation is what's kind of the gray area because it's like, okay, well, if you deal with personally identifiable information, name, address, driver's license, birth date, addresses, phone numbers,
Credit card information.
credit card information, definitely.
Mhm.
Social security number. If you have any of that kind of information, if you have two or more pieces of that information together, you technically could follow or fall under that rule. So who
Interesting.
doesn't have names and addresses along with one other piece of information? Typically, you have
Mhm.
at least two, if not more, pieces of information that are considered to be personally identifiable information, or PII is how it's commonly called.
Right, right. So what about uh, this is something I've always I guess been concerned about being a home-based business, and also I was a signature in the Army, so this kind of stuff is top of mind, I guess, is based on my experience. But a lot of home-based businesses use the same computer for their company and their personal.
Yeah,
So is that, I mean, I don't guess it's recommended, but what
I think I
advice do you have
understand.
for those folks?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. And if you can, I would say absolutely have different computers because you don't want the kids potentially going to infected websites, for instance, if you have any kind of personally identifiable information on your computer, especially. Now, if there's no choice and the kids need to do their homework and all that, then you can create a new profile and make sure there's another thing that you should do to protect the data on your computer, and that is if you get the Pro version of Windows, Windows 10 and 11, Pro versions include something called BitLocker. This actually goes all the way back to Windows 7 days. So if you had Windows 7 or newer, and you should have Windows 10 at least, by the way, Windows 7 is no longer supported as of 2014. I even remember the date, April 17th of 2014, or it's in April, but you definitely don't want to have Windows 7 any longer because anybody that like if anybody sees that and you're using it and you have personally identifiable information, you could be reported and they could take action against you. You could be fined, in other words. But it's important to have encryption on your computer if it's ever going to be touched by anybody else. So that's free protection that you can get right from Windows. It's called BitLocker, and you can enable BitLocker and just create a separate profile. And if you don't understand what that means, you can look it up. Just Bing it if you're Microsoft type, or Google it if you like Google. But just look it up and make sure that you create that new profile and password protect it with a secure password that the kids aren't going to be able to get into. And if you have teenagers, I'd say absolutely get them, get them a Chromebook or something. You can, computers are cheap anymore, and you can go on Amazon and buy a used computer for $100, $50. So it's not like you can't get one inexpensively. They're available because there's more computers than people using them right now, and there's a kind of a glut of extras in the resale environments like Amazon. So you can get a computer really cheap right now, and you can get a Chromebook for 199, 149. I've even seen them. So,
It's crazy. You can't even get a cell phone for that cheap, I don't think.
well, you can get sometimes you can, but and I know people that use cell phones as their
Yeah, yeah.
as a computing device because anymore they're so powerful. I mean, I've got one sitting right here that I got a new phone, and it's like, well, what am I going to do with this thing? And it's one of those foldable ones,
Oh yeah,
So it is big, and I can project up onto a big screen TV and
yeah,
use a Bluetooth keyboard with it, and I've got a regular computer. So it's
yeah.
kind of like a Chromebook then.
I'm more of a computer user. I mean, I obviously I'd use my phone for a lot of things, mostly um, text messages, social media, and shopping. But I'll tell somebody, hey, I'm going to send you an email, or can you send me an email? And they'll be like, well, can I just text it to you? And I'm just like,
You know,
well, yeah, you can. Then I just cut and paste, or and then email it to myself. Um, so before we wrap up, going back to buying new computers, what are what would you tell our audience about disposing of the old computers and
right.
their information and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And this happens with not just computers, it happens with phones, like you mentioned. It also happens with things like copiers. Copiers take an image of documents and save them to a hard drive. And we've got copiers, even from the FBI, that were recovered because they were disposed of, that had documents that even our own FBI has, scanned. So yeah, you have to be conscious of this stuff, and there's no reason to allow somebody to have easy access to any of your personal information, financial information, healthcare information, any of that, because in the wrong hands, that means money to them and problems for you. So one thing you can do if you absolutely positively want to make sure that nothing is going to be potentially compromised is remove the hard drive. Or if it has a solid state drive, remove the solid state drive. You can sell the computer without or give the computer without the drive in it, and you've just removed all the possibility of somebody getting that information. And I do that. That's what I do. And I will do that for anybody that's got that concern.
Mm.
Before we get rid of a computer, we will remove the drive. And then there's things you can do with the drive. I mean, if you like shooting, go skeet shooting, you know, or drill
Oh, funny.
holes into it, bust it up. If
Yeah.
it's a laptop drive and it's a standard spindle type drive, the spinning type, those platters are usually glass. They break easily. But if
Mm,
it's a standard hard drive in a computer, then they're made of metal. And the only thing you can really do, there's actually shredding companies that will take drives and shred them for you. So that's the
mm,
absolute best possible thing you can do. I don't recommend bleach bit. If you know what I'm referencing there, it's not completely plausible. That's what Hillary supposedly did. She says she cleaned her drives. Anyway, I don't want
mm.
to get
So
that.
yeah, we won't go there.
I knew when
So
that
the
when it was being
phone, but
talked about that there was that all those emails were somewhere, and they were.
yeah. So the computer's a hard drive, and the phone's a SIM card. Um, and what in the
Well, actually,
printer?
no. The phone SIM card is one part, but that's not where all the data is stored. It has its own memory. So the best thing to do there is make sure you wipe the phone clean. I mean, the one
Is
I
that
just
like
showed
going
you,
back to factory reset? Is
yeah,
that how you
factory
do that?
reset. The one that I just showed you, I'm keeping this because I mean, the most they give me is $100. Well, for me, it's another computing device, and I don't want everything that's on here to be possibly compromised. So I'll hold it and I'll eventually destroy it.
Mm.
Or I don't know what I'll do with it, but I'm not going to. One other thing
Um,
I'm going to offer to everybody, since we're kind of running out of time here, is on my website, I give 15 ways to protect your business against cyber attack. And that's like a little self-assessment, and you can just kind of go through that. Which ones do you have? And if you know you have them, what was the date of that? Because you always want to know where you started from so that you can check your progress later. And that way, if you ever do an assessment again, and that's something else that I offer. I offer an assessment, and I'll even do a dark web scan on your business domain if you contact me, which lets you know if any of your information has been compromised for your business. So go to 15 justrightcomputers.com/15 ways, 15 ways, and you can
well,
get
that's very generous. I appreciate that. Um, uh, so two things. One question and then instructions for you. So we talked about computers, cell phones. How do you wipe or destroy the hard drive on your printer?
They can be removed. That's usually the best way to do that. And
Hmm.
your copier printer type company can help with that. Most of them are aware of this vulnerability, and if they're a reputable company, they will do something for you on that. They will make sure, and you can ask for a certificate of either destruction or certificate of, wiping the drive because they have programs that will overwrite the drive with ones and zeros a bunch of times so that it's completely unreadable.
Awesome. So remind me, I need to introduce you to one of my Leadership Tampa Bay cohort members, James Entre, who is launching a business in this space of printer, you know, securing printers or protecting printers from cyber attacks. Don't
Mhm.
let me forget that. He's such a visionary. He's just brilliant. So I think you two will have a lot to discuss. And then a lot of our viewers will watch our video later. So we always tell our guests whatever information you want to put out to our listeners, put it in the chat of this recording on our Facebook page, and they'll go to it. We started in the zone at 9 a.m. on Mondays during 2020 to stay connected, and now that everybody's back at it, 9 a.m. is hard for some folks, but they come back to watch us. Um, Now, I think we're going to wrap up because I know you have things to do. As do I. It's Monday, Monday, February. I can't even believe it's halfway through the month of February. So, a
Yeah,
couple of things. We have it at the ECC. We always like to promote the ECC and what they're doing, and that's where our office is. Today they have well, it's 9 o'clock, so you can't attend that one because everybody's watching here. But tomorrow, grow your business with digital marketing. Of course, Wednesday, February 14th, Veterans Day. I mean, not just Valentine's Day, and also my godson's birthday. 1 Million Cups, which is my our favorite entrepreneur program in the Tampa Bay area, and that's about it. What's this spring 24 release event? What is that? I'm not sure what that is. Oh, Salesforce admin group. So they must be talking about Salesforce. So if you guys are interested in any of that, check out the schedule and register at the ECC website. And uh, I mentioned we launched a new cohort this weekend. Rosie, if you still want in for the Saturday's class, you can reach her at Rosie at actionzonetampa.com. But we are taking applications right now for our next in-person cohort, which is in April. Starts the first Saturday of April, which I believe is April 6th. And like, John said, there's no, as amazing as we are on virtual platforms, there's nothing to take away, or we can't take away
yeah.
anything away from the in-person
You can go
experience.
to in person. You definitely want to do that.
Mm.
It's very valuable. I've been in business a long time, and I took a lot away from that. I was really, really impressed and appreciate the amount of work that goes into putting together the Action Zone cohorts by Action Zone and the staff there. So very much appreciate all that you guys did for me, and I learned a lot still. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Old dogs can new learn or learn new
Yeah, well, I appreciate
stuff.
that because while Action Zone, when we formed it, we had with the intent of servicing ideation, that early ideation journey for the entrepreneurs. But because we are all entrepreneurs, we can meet the entrepreneur where they're at. And I don't care how long you've been in business. Sometimes you just need to go back to the basics so that you can refresh, and maybe you missed a step or didn't realize that there was a step that you could have taken or implemented in your business that could really change it. So appreciate that. I will, like I said, put everything in the chat uh, on Facebook. And John, thank you so much for joining me Monday after Super Bowl. We're all
Yeah,
tired. I don't
yeah,
even
it
think
kind of
I
was
started
late for
speak.
us, wasn't it? After 11.
Yeah, I don't even think I started talking until we got on the show at 9 o'clock. Tired. But have a great week. Tell your lovely wife I said hello, and I will
Thank
see
you,
you
Heather.
either at the next Action Zone event or the next Save Up event.
Thank you. Great
All
being
right,
on with
take care.
you. Bye.
Bye.